Welcome to the Expecting Aerialist podcast. Thanks for joining me today. I have my friend Carlin here. She is a doula. She is a Pilates pro who works with the perinatal phase. She is a dancer and an occupational therapist out of Sacramento currently, but was based here in LA for a while. Am I right, Carlin?
That's right. A long time, like 16 years in LA.
Awesome. So I'm really happy to have her here. And before we jump into the doula stuff and what she does to help her clients. Oh, there's my bean. Hi. Before I have her jump into that stuff, I really wanted her to tell her story because I think that her story is, oh my goodness. Her story is not unique, and it might feel unique to some of you guys out there maybe having the same experience. But yeah, and thank you ahead of time for just being vulnerable because I think this is going to mean a lot to a lot of women.
Thank you.
So, go ahead and, start wherever you want.
Yeah, I'm happy to share this story because it is true that I think the experience of being pregnant and giving birth and a first time mother can be very isolating and overwhelming. And so it feels really important to me that women feel empowered to share their stories. And I gave birth in 2019. My husband and I found out we were pregnant just 2 months after we got married. And
wow, 2 months?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yep, surprise.
Surprise.
Right?
Okay.
Yeah, and that wasn't a part of the vision that we had for our lives together necessarily. My husband was very solidly not on board with having kids. At least our own children. We were maybe thinking about adopting down the road. And I was always kind of on the fence, leaning towards no, feeling like that wasn't a fit for me. And so when we found out we were pregnant, it was very unexpected. And, we went through a lot of different emotions around all of it. And we knew, or we felt that it was meant to be. And we found some comfort in that. And, he was very supportive throughout each step of the pregnancy. And I felt really grateful to have the experience of being pregnant just because it wasn't something I knew was going to be a part of my path. And so I was really curious about it each step of the way. It felt really fascinating to me to learn about what was happening with my body, and also scary as a dancer, having so many years where I knew my body so well, to have it start to change in ways that I couldn't control. And
and also ways that you weren't
right.
actively inviting into your life. Because for me, I knew I wanted to have kids for so long. So I was like, okay, I'm making this conscious choice. And, it's I can imagine how different that might be.
Yeah, it was very interesting for me. And it felt like a bigger spiritual practice, honestly, like just in allowing myself to let go and be open and knowing I couldn't control this process. And, things were unfolding and changing. And I knew that the journey throughout pregnancy was going to be a foundation for lessons throughout this motherhood experience, which has been the case just in releasing control and all of that. But, in terms of how pregnancies go overall, I felt like everything went quite smoothly. It had some, I had some bumps in the road, but overall I had a really great pregnancy and I'm thankful for that. And then we get to labor and delivery. And there was so much emphasis throughout my pregnancy on preparing for that time. And I remember in my third trimester, it just felt like so much focus on what's it going to look like? When's it going to happen? How is it going to happen? What are going to be my breathing techniques that I'm going to use? What's going to be in my hospital bag, right? Like I remember even putting together a playlist of songs that I thought would help me during the pushing phase, right?
Yep.
Aromatherapy.
I have the tiger,
Exactly. Exactly. And so I just remember feeling, gosh, that was a really hard time where you knew this massive event was going to come. You knew there was going to be this major shift that took place and a physical experience you couldn't fully anticipate, along with just a shift in identity that was going to be coming. And how do you prepare for that? It's going to be such a massive, life-changing experience, but you don't know any more than that, right?
And what you had said to me right before we got on to record was that culturally, our culture, the American culture, I don't know if other cultures in the world prepare women better for what we know now as a fourth trimester, but it's like it's like, here's your baby, good luck.
That's right. There just is not that, in general, there's not that support in order to help with the planning phase in terms of what happens. And now, we don't live in villages like, we used to, in smaller networks of, communities. We might be further away from family and all of that. So our networks are different. And, this is just even outside of COVID pandemic time. There's more isolation in general, and there's not the preparation for what happens after the baby comes.
Yep. And now with COVID, it's a million times worse.
That's right. Yeah. And so, I had a really beautiful delivery and continue to be so grateful for that experience. And because the whole experience of being pregnant felt a little bit surreal, honestly, to me, because it's unbelievable when you think about it, like a new life is growing inside you, and then you birth it to the world. Like I can't totally wrap my head around it still. So I remember,
me too.
right?
Me too.
I gave birth in a tub, and they place, my daughter on my chest. And the first words out of my mouth, thanks to my mom who happened to videotape it, even though I asked her not to, was, "What is happening?" Like I can see there was a disconnect because it just felt so out of this world. And there we are in the hospital. We have a new little one, and we now are parents, and I don't even know what that means, honestly, and our little one, right off the bat, she started crying as newborns do. And the crying continued day and night, except when the nurses would come in to swaddle, because they knew how to swaddle her just right. And of course, neither my husband nor I had experience with that, couldn't get it. Like she was not satisfied with our swaddles. And it was hard to get her to sleep unless we had support from the medical staff there. And so
so hard.
It's so hard, and then.
So you knew going home that this was going to be a struggle.
That's right.
Already.
That's right. Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah. So then we get home, and we don't have any family that lives in the area. And so we're just dropped off at the front steps of our house with this little one. And I hadn't even fully envisioned what that would be like. Before having her, I couldn't picture it. We had a crib set up, the bassinet, we had all of the things we were supposed to have, but I couldn't imagine, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to move forward. And that just led itself into several days of just that newborn phase. I'm feeding her every 2 hours. She's not sleeping for, any extended period of time because newborns don't. And my husband.
And you said that your baby was also pretty colicky, which is common, but such a thing.
It is. It's common and really challenging. And people, I think, don't talk enough about it, or, maybe people don't want to scare new moms or pregnant moms to let them know that's a possibility beforehand. I'm not sure, but yeah, she cried what felt like all of the time, and it didn't help.
Oh, man.
Yeah, if I thought, okay, well, let me wear her on me. Maybe that will help. And it didn't. There were occasional times
It
where,
didn't.
no, it didn't. But it helped me to feel better because at least I thought, well, at least she's on me. She knows that she's with me. And that's all that I felt like I could do. But she was still crying.
And you couldn't console her.
Couldn't. I couldn't.
And the pediatrician says at this point,
nothing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's like, oh, well, she's healthy. It's fine. Newborns have phases where they go through these kinds of things. Like, it'll be fine. She'll grow out of it. But then this wraps into a feeling of, well, I certainly don't want to leave my house even to go on a walk around the block. Because,
if she's screaming.
Yeah, and what are people going to think? That mother doesn't even know how to console her own baby. Now being removed from that, I think that other people would feel for me and would be sending loving thoughts my way rather than, she doesn't know what she's doing. But when you're fresh in that experience, it's overwhelming and really scary place to be. So we, had this little one who, was crying a lot. Both of us had we weren't very bonded, I want to say. We didn't have that immediate attachment, that sense of, oh, this is the love of our life. Like, it just was, okay, we're home with this new creature, and it's our responsibility to care for this little being.
Yeah, like keep the tadpole alive.
That's right.
Somehow.
That's right. I clung to what I was told in terms of the feeding schedule, the sleeping schedule. I would have panic around if I slept over 2 hours and I should have fed her at the 2-hour mark. Did I mess something up because I didn't feed her? I slept a little bit too long, because I wanted to do everything right. And I'm using air quotes when I say that, because it's like, okay, well, I've always been a good student. I do what people tell me to do. And here you're in a situation where, there are some general guidelines, but every situation is different. The baby's different. The mother is different. Any parent involved, support people all have different ways of, dealing with the situation, and you have to be adaptable. And that's part of one of the challenges that comes up, I think, for new moms, is just kind of releasing control and trying to do your best to make the best choice that you can in that moment and go with the flow as much as possible. So, all this to say, it was really, really hard. And with the sleep deprivation and all of that, my husband reached a point very quickly, it was a couple days in, where he basically said, I can't do this.
Oh my goodness. Days.
Yeah,
okay,
a couple days. Yeah.
Not weeks. All right.
And he said, I need to go to work. I'm going to go to work because that's the way that I know that I can provide for the family and care for you. I can't do this every 2 hours, and the crying and not knowing what the needs are. And, it's been shown, like, the sound of an infant crying is rated up there as one of the most stressful, disturbing sounds that there is, right? To just hear that nonstop can be very challenging emotionally and mentally. And he couldn't hang, and if I would have felt like there was a choice, maybe I would have been the person that said, like, I can't hang, but I was the one who was producing the milk, and there's no option. I didn't, and so it was like, okay, well, I'm going to do everything I need to do. And so that put me in a really bad mental space. I felt trapped. I felt abandoned. I didn't know how I would, I was counting it, not just day by day. It was like minute by minute, let me just make it through this minute, through this minute. And so I really leaned upon, I've had a strong mindfulness meditation practice. This to me was one of the more extended, spiritual challenges I've had. I approached it almost like an extended silent, like seated meditation for weeks and weeks on end, where I just was trying to be present in each moment. I'm doing the best that I can. I'm here right now. This is what my breath feels like right now. So all of this is nothing that was discussed before she arrived. Oh
my God, just hearing this, like, my heart hurts for you, because we were just saying, like, the first 3-4 months of her life were probably the hardest of my life up until now. And I remember it was when I was just starting to get back on my Zoloft. And whenever the only 2 times I've gotten on, I would have this emotional roller coaster as my body was getting used to it. I don't know if you've ever been on anti-anxiety meds, but it was something that I was getting back on. I knew it was going to be helpful soon, but it was just dropping me up and down. And I had my friend Meredith come over, and it wasn't like I was going to do anything. I was just terrified of the next minute, of what my brain would do, of the fear I would have.
Yeah.
And so she came over, and I like literally held onto my friend like a lifeline of getting from like noon to 5 when my partner was going to get home. I couldn't get through 5 hours that day.
Yeah.
And it of course changed, and it shifted, and it was dynamic, like everybody was telling me. But in that day, I remember, I can't do this. I don't feel capable. And you sound like a very confident woman. Like, that is a very weird feeling for me, to not feel capable.
Totally. Yeah.
Of something.
I hear that. It is.
And it's debilitating.
It is for people who feel generally confident and capable in multiple areas of life, who have been successful, who have pursued paths that have been non-traditional, where there have, there are unique challenges in being a performer and all of that. You have to be resilient and persistent and everything. And to then be confronted with a situation that is so challenging in a very different way, and to not know of the shared experiences. It's been amazing, after having my little one, in talking to some of my closest girlfriends. Well, then I hear their similar stories, but I didn't know that, and they didn't share that until I was in the middle of my story. And I think it would have been helpful to hear a little bit more in advance, to just know that, there are these challenges that arise, and you get through them, and there are resources and supports available. But one of the things I think that is so important, that I wish were more consistently included in prenatal care, is this concept of developing a postpartum care plan to support the entry into the 4th trimester. Because we focus on labor and delivery and the breathing techniques and what's in the hospital bag, but we don't prepare people for how to be set up to help things be as smooth as they possibly can, or be equipped when you return home for the challenges that might arise. And so, that might include making sure that you have, what's going to happen with meal preparation. Is somebody cooking at home? Are you having meals delivered? Can a friend help set up a meal train? Like, maybe that's part of a baby shower gift idea rather than more onesies, and that could take a load off of the additional preparation, or anybody feeling like they have to go to the grocery store for even, a couple of days is helpful. So, who's doing which chores in order to make sure, and are they something that you or a partner can do? Or is it something that people, if we're not in pandemic time, if they're coming to visit the baby, that when they come, the first question they should ask is, what can I help with? Maybe it's putting away the dishes. Maybe it's putting in a load of laundry. Maybe it's changing a set of bed sheets, whatever it is. But there should be a space where people can think in advance, okay, what are the tasks around the house that it would be really helpful for people to assist with, thinking about what are those self-care practices that you have access to, and you will have access to immediately postpartum. So, for people that are really physical, it's not realistic to say, okay, well, I'm a runner. Right away during those times when I'm feeling stressed out after giving birth, I'm going to go on a run. Well, that wouldn't be the best choice. So what is some other kind of alternative self-care strategy you can use in those moments? For me, I had these little aromatherapy tabs that I put in the shower. And so I could put on a hot shower, stick this little aromatherapy tab, and it felt like I was in kind of like a spa steam room. And even if I had a 5-minute hot shower.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. It just helped me escape for a moment, just reconnect to the feeling of being in a warm shower. It was a little reset button, you know? And so I think it would be helpful for people to be guided through a process or just have access to a list of, okay, in any moment I could do one of these things quickly when I'm feeling just lost, you know? In the same way, like connecting with a partner, what are quick things that, you know, if you have a partner around, you know, that you can how can you connect to know that you're on the same page in this really challenging time when both of you are sleep deprived and just like ships passing in the night to try to do whatever tasks are on the list? You know, that would be helpful to think about beforehand. And I wish I'd had more of those tools, you know, when we went into that phase where I felt abandoned in certain ways, you know, where he couldn't help with some of the tasks that I really wanted him to help with. But maybe if we would have, you know, connected our foreheads and just like taken a deep breath together a couple times a day, like if I knew that was our way to be like, okay, we're here for each other, we're in this together, I think that would have gone a long way in those early days and weeks.
Can you talk about how you and your husband eventually got out of that space?
Yeah. You know, it didn't happen right away. As our little one got older, as she was able to, you know, as her little smiles emerged, as he was getting a little bit more feedback from her, I think that really helped with his bonding with her. So he saw her as more than just a little crying creature.
Okay. And
that was an important part of it, the bonding, like his own experience of bonding. And actually, you know, there's some research to show that when a mother is experiencing any kind of postpartum anxiety or depression, that it's something like 50% of men or the partners are also experiencing something like a postpartum depression.
Oh,
and so
it's just that the two can't talk to each other.
That's right.
It's so hard to...
Yeah. And I think that's not something that's known,
so important to know.
That? Yeah, it's really important. And
I think
knows
that.
That's right. If we would have known that beforehand and had the tools, I think we would have had more productive conversations earlier on, because he definitely was experiencing some of those challenges. And so we figured out ways for him to connect with her based on, you know, I knew the times of days that were more likely for her to not be fussy. You know, as I learned her and as we learned our routines together, I could kind of facilitate experiences between the two of them that were more positive interactions. And so that was an important part of them in their healing journey together. Mm-hmm. And that was also helpful for me in my healing journey with him and with her, to see that I could trust that he would be okay with her. Because there was a phase where I didn't trust that I could let my guard down, because I didn't know if all of a sudden he would become overwhelmed or upset or need to leave because she was crying. You know what I mean? So I was always on alert. And so it took a while for me to allow my guard down, to know that he would be okay with her. And so it didn't happen overnight. And so it was a process of ongoing, like repeated positive experiences, a process of ongoing communication for me to advocate for what my needs were. So there were certain tasks and things that I felt like would have been helpful to me, but not all of them were things that he felt like he could do, if that makes sense. So we would have to have conversations around like, okay, you know, here are a couple of things that would really be helpful to me in order to feel partnered in this parenting experience, you know? And so we could kind of go through what my list of things was, and he could tell me like, okay, yeah, I can help a little bit more on this, you know, that other thing, nope, can't do it, or I'm not there yet. And just that conversation of negotiation was healing for me in terms of, okay, yeah, we are in this together. We are working towards it. It's hard for us. It's hard for each of us in different ways. And that's something, I think for a partner, it can be really challenging to not be the primary, if they're not the primary parent. Because just by nature of the breastfeeding relationship and the attachment towards mom, I mean, the fourth trimester, the newborn is still, they've just entered the world. They're used to being attached to mother. And so they're going to continue that attachment to mama.
I'm pretty sure my child still wants to be inside of me. like she,
right?
I've been joking lately because basically I'm in the kitchen, I'm trying to cook breakfast for us. Mm-hmm. And if I walk back, she'll sometimes ricochet off my butt and fall backwards because she's not following behind me. She's literally, her nose is up my butt, and that's where she's walking. Like,
it's that attachment. That's where she feels safe and secure.
To be on me. And it hasn't changed, and she's a year and a half.
I know. Yeah, I hear that.
Absolutely. And
yeah, there's a friend of mine who shared a quote with me. A friend of mine shared a quote with me. The quote was, "It's an honor to be your comfort," or "It's a privilege to be your comfort." Something like that around.
That's nice.
Yeah, and it's
a privilege to be your comfort.
Yeah, in those moments when it may feel a little bit suffocating, or like, oh my gosh, I just wish that I could have my autonomy back, or my whole body, or myself back, or my quiet time. I just reflect on, there's going to come a time where she won't need me in this way, where she won't need to nestle up, or, just put her head in my bosom, and nuzzle up in that way and want to be that close. And there is something really beautiful about that it's, it's a privilege and it's an honor to be the space where she feels the most safe and secure.
Yeah, I think I said the other day, can mommy just pee by herself once today? And the answer is no. The answer is absolutely not, but daddy can somehow. But we're not going to go too far into that direction right now. The other thing that we were talking about that I think just links so much, obviously this podcast is geared towards aerialists, but I have to say, I've got a couple friends who are synchronized swimmers and dancers, and really that change of identity is very similar for all of us. Can you talk about your experience with it as a dancer, and then also not expecting to have a child in your life or give birth to a child during your life?
Yeah, absolutely. That has been actually one of the hardest parts of all of this, is just that shift in the relationship to my body. I alluded to this a little bit in just speaking about the pregnancy journey, and just how things start to change, and being so hyper aware of my body and the way that I'm used to my body feeling, in a way that I think the general public does not have that sense of, oh, I feel my pelvic, the joints in my pelvis are becoming more unstable. That feels weird, or just noticing oh, wow, this specific inner thigh muscle is far tighter than it ever was before, And so going through that experience throughout pregnancy, and then giving birth, and then having such a different relationship with my core, and, I could go on and on about how I didn't even have a pelvic exam at my 6-week postpartum checkup. There was no physical check-in after giving birth. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've birthed a human, and nobody wants to look in there to check and make sure everything's okay. That's just insanity to me. And so it was just a verbal check-in to make sure, is everything feel good? You're okay? Okay, great. So then postpartum, doing some of the, just even going for a walk felt different now that I didn't have the weight in my body that I was used to over the many months of growing her in my belly. And I could tell that things were not stable. I knew it was going to be a long journey to get back to some of the types of movement that for me were a source of coping. My background is as a dancer and a yogi, and I'm used to taking those classes. And I knew that my body wasn't ready to do some of the movements that emotionally I wanted to do, like my emotional coping through big, like lyrical, sweeping jazz movements across the floor. Like that's not going to happen. I'm not going to start leaping around, that my body wasn't ready for that. And so that was really hard psychologically to know that I didn't have access to some of the same movement that I was used to, and that I felt like I needed as an emotional outlet. And that journey actually has continued, so my little one will be 2 later this month. And yes, I'm certainly in a far stronger place than I was, a year ago, a year and a half ago, but my body is still different. It's still different. Not only does it look different, that's a whole separate conversation, like body image, but it feels different. Like the way that I experience movement in my bones and muscles feels different than it did before giving birth. And so this has been like a big piece of it. I'm really resistant to when people say like, oh, getting your body back, or people told me, oh, you'll get your body back quickly. You're a dancer, you're fit, and I just am really resistant to that, because you have gone through such a transformative experience. Your body has done such amazing work, that you're not going to get your body back, and that's okay. And your body is amazing, and it's different. It's different. There are differences. And even if it does, even if physically it looks similar, you get to a space where, it looks like a similar body than it was before, it still has gone through such transformation, and things have shifted around, had to move back in their space and in space. And there's such a big psychological component that for me has been really challenging. I've been like 2 in my head about movement almost. And only now am I getting out of that.
What's the bigger challenge out of all the challenges? Is it carving out time for that practice? Is it the practice itself, and when you're doing it, it makes you feel a certain way and it discourages you? Or is it a completely other thing, or is it all of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Number one, I would say it's carving out consistent time. I'm working full time, and then having a toddler it's hard, and in a pandemic. Finding consistency with a schedule is a challenging piece. And then for me, it has been exploring new movement. So just acknowledging. And, with the pandemic and group classes being shut down and not having access to the types of dance studios up here that I did in LA, that kind of thing, it's been a lot of different factors. But for me, it's been kind of like starting fresh. Okay, let me work on my fundamental, like core strength that I know that I need to work on. So I did, and I have a diastasis still. So working on healing that. And so it was returning to fundamentals. And so for me, it was kind of just being humble and acknowledging, okay, this is where I'm at. I am used to doing really exercises that require a lot of strength. And my core is telling me that I am not at that place anymore. So I'm going to start by laying on my back, and I'm going to do very basic core activation exercises until I'm strong enough to take it to that next level. So it was a psychological piece of just knowing, oh shoot, I've got to work on these like really basic kind of boring, again, I'm air quoting that, like fundamental exercises to make sure my core is firing properly so I can build a strong foundation to move forward. So that was a big piece of it. And then a second part of it is, exploring different movement to see if maybe there's something that's new that feels good to me. And actually I have taken up running, which I'm going to say I've taken it up because now I'm like a couple months in and it's still happening.
Do you enjoy running?
I never did before, but I'm liking it now. And it's all stemming from like playlists, because it makes me feel like I'm in the dance studio. Like I listen to old songs that, from old competition pieces, or, for the classes that I remember back in LA, like great warm-up songs or whatever. And it just makes me want to move, and moving through space while running has felt really great, and it's filling a little bit of a hole for me right now. And then I'll also dance in my living room. And
that makes sense to me from like a intellectual space, but I hate running. So not from a personal space, but this is the other question. So you specialize in working with women with Pilates, perinatal. So can you talk about your practice and what you focus on and your experience with it and what you've learned from it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I really love working with women prenatally and postnatally because, yeah, we really look at the basics, the fundamentals of how is the core functioning. So often, we don't in daily life, most people tend to not use their core super effectively, but we get by and it's fine. We tend to, most people have really shallow breathing patterns, like you're taking shallow breaths in your chest. You're not fully expanding the diaphragm. You're not breathing into the sides and back of your body. And so when I work with women prenatally, we're able to, like, because of the growing belly, everything is getting tight. And in the core, we want to try to find more space. And so we do a lot to, like, bends to the side, like nice, juicy, like stretches to the side, and focusing on filling up the sides and back of the body. So there's like a reduced muscle tension back there. So it can feel really good to do just some of those more gentle movements. And that bleeds into the postpartum phase. How can you reconnect with your core in a way that's going to help you get the strength back? Those deep ab muscles have been so stretched out with the baby inside that it takes a while for them to relearn how to fire. Excuse me. For them to relearn how to fire and the connective tissue to heal. And so there are a lot of women that share challenges with leaking, incontinence or healing and diastasis. And so when we are in the Pilates studio, we can look at some of those fundamental movements. So like almost like sometimes people call it pre-Pilates, but it's fundamental core strengthening movements to help make sure everything's firing and to educate women on, okay, what does it mean when your belly is doming or that linea alba is stretching out? Okay, that tells you that your deep abs aren't firing in the way that they need to. And so let's figure out how to get those working again, and maybe some different exercises that you might need to do first before we advance to these other exercises. So I found it really rewarding, and the women that I work with really appreciate that education, because when in life are we educated about how our diaphragm is supposed to work and the relationship of the diaphragm to the pelvic floor and all of that? There isn't really a place for that education. So
literally, this is part of the reason why I'm even doing this, because there's no place. It's so frustrating, even because we're both Pilates trained. Even in my training, there's literally a page on pelvic floor. And then maybe one page on how the diaphragm works with the body. It's incredible to me. And you don't have to be like super hippie voodoo to believe in this stuff. It should be mainstream.
That's right. That's right. And I remember when I was pregnant, I thought, oh, well, I know these prenatal modifications. I'm going to put my legs in tabletop. So that should be good. That should be sufficient, and then I would have the experience of doing something. I'm like, this does not feel good on my body. And then I would be confused. Oh, well, this is supposed to be the modification for pregnant women, and so I feel so grateful to have gone through that experience and been able to practice Pilates and, take my own practice yoga to feel what it feels like, or what it might feel like in a pregnant body while going through these experiences or going through these exercises. And I think like the takeaway of all of it is that no two bodies are the same. You need to listen to your body and what it's telling you to do or not do, because you might be in a class where someone offers a modification and right away, it doesn't feel right on your body. Then you get to decide you're not going to do that. And that's fine. And so I think there's an empowerment that needs to happen there around each person knowing what's right for their own body and trusting that, even if a personal trainer says, oh, I think you should be able to do this. If you know that it's not feeling right in your body, then you get to say, okay, no, I think I need to back off today, or, that kind of thing. So I think that's an important part of it too.
And do you work with women, like personal, and then on the like personal training, and then also on the reformer?
Yes. Yeah. I do all the equipment, and mat work. Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. I have a Pilates machine here. It's actually like a rack for all my dirty clothes right now. But because of COVID, I don't have any clients coming in. Yeah, such an amazing, amazing resource. And I wanted to get into the postpartum doula stuff.
Yeah.
So let's take a right turn there. This is so. Please tell me what it is that you do for women in their fourth trimester. What are the different things you can do? What can you expect from a postpartum doula for all those women out there who are like, what is that, and how might it help me in my first 3 months of the baby's life?
Absolutely. A postpartum doula is such an incredible resource. So I think people are developing more and more awareness of birth doulas. So having a doula present or available during the birthing experience. And they're there as a partner to help advocate for the birthing person's needs and requests and just be an additional layer of support for the person who's giving birth. Well, a postpartum doula carries that support over into that postpartum phase once you're home. And so they can do anything from basically like when they would walk in the door, they would say, what do you need? Like, how can I serve you today? And it might be, okay, I need you to do all the laundry, or maybe I need you to cook a meal. It might be, I need you to hold the baby while I take a nap. It might be, I am having a hard time setting up for breastfeeding. You know, is there a way that you see that maybe we could better position these pillows? You know, so there's a variety of different types of things that a postpartum doula can help with. And so I went through that certification in addition to my background as an occupational therapist, because I wanted to really immerse myself in all of those issues that arise for the immediate postpartum period. Because there are, questions around babies' sleeping habits and eating habits and just managing all of the different pieces. And so a partnership with a postpartum doula can kind of take a little bit of stress off of the couple or the individual, to just have somebody else there to problem solve what's needed. And with my additional perspective as an occupational therapist, my focus is on people's daily habits and routines. And so that loops in really nicely with work as a postpartum doula, or background as a postpartum doula, to help people just reflect on, okay, what do you need? Like how can we better arrange your routine for the day, or even for a portion of the day? Like, is your diaper changing situation working well? How can we maybe set it up better so it's a little bit more ergonomic? You're not hurting your back, or you're not hurting your wrist as you're reaching for the diaper that's over there. Like, do you have a nightlight easily accessible? So when it's in the middle of the night, it's just easier. It's somebody to help kind of problem solve and coach to help things just flow a little bit more smoothly. And so it's a great resource that I think people aren't yet aware of that exists. And so something I'm really passionate about. And I also, I work with people to develop postpartum care plans so they can walk through the process of kind of coming up with a plan for themselves, or plan for them and their partner, to address some of these areas, so you can be a little bit equipped to at least know, okay, what resources do I have, or what are going to be my go-tos if we're having challenges in any of these areas. And then you can always problem solve and troubleshoot if you need even more support in any one of those areas. But at least then you know that you're set up with a variety of resources for the immediate when you walk in the door, when you're home with new baby. You at least have some of the areas covered with a postpartum care plan. So I'm really passionate about helping people feel supported in that phase.
Okay, so you're located here in California like me. So these women who are potentially listening, I got an email the other day that said, you're doing really well in Russia. And I'm like, whoa, no way.
Interesting.
I don't know. Maybe it's just spam. I have no idea. But if it's true, you're being heard in many countries. Is there a resource internationally?
Yes, for doulas, there's an organization called DONA, DONA, and you can go to www.dona.org, dona.org, DONA.org. And that's a place where people can find resources about birth doulas, postpartum doulas. There are also a lot of different postpartum care plan resources. So I'm available through my business, Supported Mama. You can Google postpartum care plans, and you can find some templates that will give you ideas for some of the things that might be helpful for you to think about. I always think it's great if you're able to work through that process with somebody who might be able to provide a little bit more tailored information, or take a little bit of background information into account as you create a plan to make sure it fits your circumstances in the best way possible. But yeah, there are resources all over the place. And, with everything increasingly accessible virtually, my hope is this continues to expand, and that there are even more and more virtual offerings available. But yeah, those would be the places I would recommend looking.
So also, if women wanted to just talk to you, you do virtual, right?
I do virtual one-on-one coaching sessions. We do virtual postpartum care planning sessions. I do virtual movement sessions, so we can walk through some of the, fundamental core exercises. I'm happy to do that virtually. I'm accessible, and I'm really happy to work with women in this way. I'm so passionate about it. I want people to feel supported. You don't have to feel isolated and alone. You don't have to go through it on your own. It's because it can just feel overwhelming and you might not know where to start. And so I like to see myself as a partner to just get started, and I might not have all of the resources. I might not know, I don't know everything, but I've got a lot of great ideas about where to look and how to help build a plan that will be customized to you and to help address your specific concerns and needs. So there are a lot of really amazing people doing work in the maternal health and wellness space. A lot of occupational therapists, doulas, physical therapists, people in different psych fields, social workers, psychologists. So there are supports available. Postpartum Support International is an incredible wealth of resources for anything related to mental health that I encourage people to explore as well. So I just want people to not feel alone during this.
So phase. For my listeners out there, yes. For my listeners out there, I'm going to have her information on the blurb attached to this podcast. So you don't have to worry about scrambling to write something down. I'll have that resource written down for you guys. And just to kind of wrap up, there's a couple things that I was thinking that I didn't want to interrupt you. Number one, I really feel like this kind of argument / fight / conversation with your partner about the division of labor is such a thing. It is so challenging in many, many relationships to figure out that healthy and nice balance. And I feel like the postpartum anxiety and the depression, it can be so linked to this one thing. I've seen so many women go through this where it almost feels like they don't have that support because that conversation's not happening in a healthy way, or something's kind of gone not wrong, but it's just not, the dynamic's not right yet, and they don't know how to get themselves on the right track. And then the sleep deprivation gets worse, and then the PPD starts, and then the PPA starts. I experienced that. Can you speak a little bit on that? And then also just to, if you have any last thoughts for my listeners. Yeah, I absolutely agree. It can be overwhelming, and especially when you're sleep deprived and just your cognitive capacity, it's hard to artfully
state, eloquently, how can I convey what I'm trying to say to my partner in a way that it will be received? It's hard to be in that space when you're just like super sleep deprived and words aren't coming out in the way that you might want them to. So that's something that I work with people on too, is, having that, like during a, just having some space to figure out, okay, what do you need? Like, what do you need to advocate for? What are you asking for? What would be most helpful to you? Because what can happen sometimes is that partners think they're being helpful and they think they're doing the thing that would be most helpful, when really the mother, or the birthing person might want something else, and might feel supported in a different way. And so facilitating that conversation, can be a tricky one, but it's helpful to kind of think through, okay, what do I actually need? And then being able to receive, because that's something that also comes up a lot is, I think it can be hard for women to just be in a space of like allowing people to do other things for you and to just totally receive it and know, what, my partner might not do the dishes in the way that I'd prefer, or the laundry might not be folded in the way that I want, or maybe they purchased the wrong item at the grocery store, and it's just kind of being able to just release that and know that, okay, that's not where your priorities, where your mental energies need to be. They're in other spaces right now. So it's an ongoing one. There's no easy answer, but I'm happy to problem solve with people around that too, just kind of stepping back to figure out what their needs are. Yeah.
And then again, I want to just drive it home to all the women out there. And sometimes it's, there are cases where it's the other partner, the man, but that you aren't alone. And if you're feeling that way, so many of us are feeling that way. And it's a daily thing sometimes to figure out with your partner what is right. So, I'm also gonna close out, Carlin later on after the recording is over, about this idea of identity and movement and how it changes for us in a positive way, because I've been dancing my whole life and I broke my leg at some point and I had all these things happen, and the depth of what my movement feels like and looks like, it doesn't feel and look the same, but where I can pull from to express something, or what I can choreograph to express something, is so much richer and deeper and texture.
Yes. Beautiful. Totally.
It is so changed over my lifetime. And I'm about to turn 44 in May. And it is, I've actually been looking on Instagram recently at some like really young, amazing dancers, just because they're catching my eye, 13, 14 years old, just, they've been taught all the things, their bodies, their lines, everything. And they've also been taught to, kind of express themselves. No matter what, no matter how good they are, it's not three-dimensional. And I can't put my finger on why that amazing kid can't give me more. It's just that they don't have the life experience, and there's no other way to get that.
Absolutely. And when people go to a space of anything body image related, I think it's so beautiful to loop back into this. Like, if your body has changed in a way that feels, I don't know, uncomfortable or something, like, it really is helpful to reframe at, look at this incredibly rich, deep life experience. You've grown a human, you've birthed a human. What an incredible feat that is, And so I think you've stated it beautifully. That's right. There's another layer of depth there that can't be achieved in other ways.
Yeah. So, I am so happy. And for the listeners out there, I want you to know that we jumped on a call to schedule this. And I was like, Carlin, do you have an hour? Because the chances that this is going to be hard to schedule is really high. Let's just do it. And she said, yes, I have an hour. We did it. And I think I wouldn't have done it another way. I don't like planning things. I just like to know what I want to know from you, what I want to ask. And then And then, I really think the listeners are going to get so much out of this conversation. Thank you so much for being open and honest and generous with your story.
Yeah. I'm so happy we were able to connect today. It was really great to speak with you. Thanks so much, Carrie.
Yay. All right, Carlin, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
You can find Carlin at Supported Mama on Instagram. I wanted to touch on one of the topics that Carlin talked about today, the idea of reframing and seeing your movement practice in a different way after your body has gone through birth. I wanted to look at it from a positive standpoint. You know, all women's bodies change differently, and for some of us, we move the same afterwards. For some, it doesn't feel the same at all. For others, you might not get back to practice for months or even years after the birth just because life gets busy and it's just not as much of a priority. So I wanted to send some love out there around this and also to encourage you guys to dip your toe in and feel what it feels like to move and create with your post-birth body, regardless of how long it's been, and see what comes. See what you can create. See what this life experience has done to change how you move, what kind of movement you want to do, how you can express yourself through movement. I think that it can be a really valuable learning experience. As I've grown older and have gone through things, my movement practice has gotten richer and there's more texture and there's just more to reach for. I've got more levels, more rooms, more compartments of things to pull from to communicate. So I really encourage you to explore that and see what's new and see what's different and see what inspires you and what re-inspires you. And I would love to hear about it if you want to share. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I am always excited to bring these guests to you. After I do these recordings, I just get so excited to get this out to you guys because I just can't wait for you guys to have the experience that I just had. So you can always find me at carrie@wrapyourheadaroundsilks.com. I want to thank Asa Watkins for post-production. And yeah, just take care out there. And I hope you guys are having a wonderful week. I'll see you next time.